Bienvenidos chicos, welcome to Espanol. This is a GCSE and A-level paper walkthrough channel. Today we'll be doing the GCSE Edexcel 2019 Spanish Reading Higher Tier paper. This is a full marks response, earning 50 out of 50, Spanish made simple, and should you see this or come across questions like this, you should get a grade 9. Please also note that I'm struggling to make listening papers at the minute, as Microsoft Present doesn't like to do this. However, I'll be trying before your exam tomorrow. Stay tuned for later videos throughout the day, as I'll be going through the 2020, 21, 22 and 23 reading higher tier papers. AQA students, I do apologise for now, you will not have any form of help from me, as I'm prioritising Edexcel higher tier. Sorry for the long introduction today, but empezamos con pregunta uno. Vale, so pregunta uno is internet access on trains. So this is about Spanish trains. So if you watch my first video, you know what I do first. So what I told about the focus, and it's one example, so we do an arrow. What do I find out about the cost? One example, so we also do an arrow here. And what are the disadvantages? Well, desventaja, the disadvantage. So what are we told about the entertainment? So entertainment is there, so it allows you to watch films. So what are we told about the entertainment? You can watch films. What do we find out at the cost? Okay, so the use is free for passengers that have first class. So free for first class. Sorry if you can't read this. And what is the disadvantage on internet access in trains? So la desventaja de internet en los trenes es la conexión en recorridos con montañas y tunnels. So bad connection in mountains and tunnels. You know what I was going to say there, so I'm just going to check the mark scheme here. So films or news, so it should be noticias there somewhere that you can watch. So canal que da 24 hours, so 24-hour news channel. Free for first class, or you could have €4 per pay. We didn't read on, so that's the other answer. And loss of connection in tunnels or mountains. You didn't need the tunnels or mountains, but well done if you've got that. 3 out of 3. Ahora pregunta dos. Okay, so ahora pregunta dos. El camino by Miguel Delibes. Okay, so it says, what happened to Miguel when Daniel was 11? What did Daniel do best? So we're looking for mejor. What surprised Daniel about studying in the city, and what conclusion do you reach about city life? So both of them are given ideas, so do your arrows to know that there is more than one possible answer. Okay, so what happened to Daniel when he was 11? So it says, Daniel's father decided that at 11 years old, Daniel would continue his studies in the city. So what happened? He would continue studies in the city. What did Daniel do best in his class? Okay, so it says here. So in school, he knew about numbers and could multiply, and he was always the best in when they read stories. What surprised Daniel about studying in the city? Okay, so I'm going to read out the whole of this passage here so that it might help you. So try to follow along if you can. However, in the city, according to the adults, secondary studies took 7 years and university studies 5 more years. Daniel couldn't believe it. So many years, 12 years of studies and sacrifices, is just that so much time is wasted in the city. Daniel reflected, everything there must be very difficult. So what surprised Daniel about studying in the city? So uni took 5 more years, so uni is plus 5. And what conclusion did he reach about city life? So much time wasted would be an answer there. So let's check the mark scheme. So his father decided to send him away. So reading, so 5 years in there, so you have to study for 12 years, so yeah, we talked about that, you would get that in the exam. And and then you waste a lot of time in the city. That's the one we got. So 4 out of 4. Ahora pregunta 3. Ahora tenemos pregunta 3, being green. So let's have a quick look at the questions before we go on with the text or article. So, what does the article say about computers? What do the experts say about environmental campaigns? What must people do in many towns? Give one idea. How can people help others? So ayudar. And how can we ensure that we continue to protect the environment? Like the last question, I'm just going to speak what the text in there says. Try and follow along if you can. So, we all need technology, but we must be more efficient. Something very easy is to ensure that our computers are not left on all the time. Also, we should all use green energy to pollute less. Experts say that it is necessary for the press to announce environmental campaigns because that way we were all aware. Nowadays, in many cities, it is mandatory to separate waste, and it is also recommended to take bottles to collection points. There are various ways to help others and the environment. Why not donate clothes we are no longer using to charity? Of course, environmental problems will only improve if we all do something to take care of our planet. So, if we start from the start, what does the article say about computers? So that is at the very start there. So to turn off our computers, it's there. Turn off computers, not use it all the time. What do the experts say about environmental campaigns? So that, where is it? The press should announce campaigns so that people know. There. What must people do in many towns? Go to dark red for this one. So, muchas ciudades or muchos pueblos. So, muchas ciudades. It is mandatory to separate waste. So, what must people do in many towns? Separate waste. How can people help others as well as the environment? So, donate clothes, change colour so that you guys can see, go to green. So, why not donate clothes that you don't use to charities? And how can we ensure that we protect the environment? The last question, go to that colour. So, how can we ensure that we continue to protect the environment? So, we should do something to take care of our planet, and I've just realised how dark that is. Sorry about that. But we should protect the environment by taking care of our planet. So, and everyone must do something to help. So don't leave them on at a time. So the press should announce. So separate rubbish, and I also said that there's somewhere in there that says take bottles to collection centre. So you could have got that. To take used clothes to charity, and everyone should do something to help. And that it's important that we must take care of our planet. So todos hacemos lo siento. Ahora pregunta 4. Ahora pregunta 4. ¿Cuáles los pasteles en el pan by Almudena Grandes? Okay, so this is one of the tick box questions. So if you're ever stuck in an exam, just guess on these because you've got a 1 in 4 chance of getting it correct. Yeah, just make sure that you do it correctly and you don't say the wrong things. So we're going to start with this, going through it chronologically. So the 3 friends had. Okay, so we're going to start from the top. So the waiter came out of the kitchen and said, "Gentlemen, what's going on? Is the food not to your liking? Would you prefer something else?" The men looked at the wine and the plates full of delicious food that no one had touched. So the 3 friends had not eaten anything. So what's the next part? They had spent all the time. So let's look for that. That's my laser. So the men looked at the wine and the plates full of delicious food that no one had touched. "Excuse me," said the waiter, raising the bottle of water. We were chatting about our problems and lost track of time. So they had spent the time, as read, they spent the time talking. The waiter took the food away. So let's have a look, see what's here. So the waiter looked angrily at the meat. But gentlemen, everything has gone cold now. It's a pity because now I have to throw this all in the trash. So is it there? So it was too hot, so that's not a lie. It was no longer edible, probably. But please eat, otherwise it's a waste. He returned later with new plates that not only had new portions of meat, but also many vegetables. So the waiter, satisfied, waited near the table to see the customers would eat, and at the same time the friends stopped arguing and happily finished everything that was on the plates. So it was no longer edible would mean that, because they couldn't eat it anymore because it was too cold and the meat was too cold. So the new dishes had more food because they said had more vegetables, which was more than what they originally had. And at the end of the meal, they stopped complaining, so everyone was happy. Check the mark scheme, CABDD, and you will get yourselves cinco de cinco. Ahora pregunto cinco. Ahora pregunto cinco, homeschooling. So this is the first question on the paper, which is going to require you to it will give you 4 names, and in them 4 names it will have 4 statements. So who hated the timetable, who failed some exams, who never went to school, and who achieved very good marks. If you turn over the paper, then you'll also see that question there. So in what ways does homeschooling change these students' lives? If you see the answer as we go through the text, write it down, as it's more than likely correct. So I'm going to start with Nora, and if she fits any of these, we'll do it. If not, then we won't. Nora, in my house I had an education divided into subjects. We learnt geometry with chess and languages with foreign films. Studying became entertaining, not boring. We didn't have to follow certain rules, like not using our phones in class or not being able to wear jewellery in school. So Nora doesn't answer any one of our questions. Sebastian, I never attended a traditional school, a traditional class or took a test, but so far I've been very successful in my working life, thanks to my parents, who were my teachers and taught me everything I know. Nowadays, you don't need to have a university degree. The professional world has changed a lot. So, Sebastian never went to school. Pilar, so studying at home without a bell signaling the end of class was the best for me. I didn't have to stop an activity I enjoyed and was focused on, just because the time dedicated to that subject has ended. So Pilar, if he didn't enjoy the signalling of the bell, means he must have hated working to a timetable. And La Ultima Chico is Rolando, so theoretically, Rolando should fail some exams and also achieve very good marks. So contradictory, but they've done it before. Just gonna put on my laser. That my school was very strict. I felt insecure and failed some exams. At home, the study methods were different and there was no pressure. In the end, my academic results were way better than those of my former classmates from the institute. So Rolando did fail exams and he did end up feeling good marks. So in what way has homeschooling changed these lives so they've become successful? If you can read that, well done. I can't. So, and most of them developed a love to learn. If we check the mark scheme, that Pilar, Rolando, Sebastian, y Rolando, and also a successful working future, improved academic success. That's the other one. Love for learning. So 5 out of 5. Ahora pregunta 6. Ahora tenemos pregunta 6. Tourism in the Dominican Republic. So we have one of these where you put a cross in 3 of the A to G boxes and the answers are there. They often trick you up on these, so just be careful as you go through. And you also get a question, what warnings are we given about tourism? 2 ideas, which means there's probably 3 in the mark scheme you can choose from, which gives you a bit of leeway in case you can't see a third one. Obviously, do not put 3. Well, you shouldn't, theoretically you shouldn't, but whatever. I'm going to use the whole text, and then I'm going to go through the answers. If we see an answer along the way, though, we will do it. So I thought I'd just quickly that just going to go over it in light blue. So less popular now. Authorities want to control number of tourists. It's easy to travel. Travel by sea is the majority. Has not affected unemployment. Current accommodation is inadequate. And there are special events for tourists. So they're the three things. If we see an answer though, I'm going to put it in yellow. Okay, so I'm going to put my pen here, but I'm just going to read out the whole text of this. Okay, they have just conducted a study on tourism in the Dominican Republic. We can say that the Dominican Republic is more fashionable than before. Tourists from different nationalities are coming in large numbers. So we instantly know that it's not less popular now. And yeah, authorities have invested a lot of funds to improve the roads, which means that they are not bothered. Thanks to this, tourists spend more time in the country because they can easily move. So it's not that one, but it is C, as they can easily travel. Furthermore, the historic centres of cities with ports where many European cruises arrive, bringing tourists, so many tourists travel by sea, they travel by the cruises, have been repaired, which creates more jobs. So that's a lie about employment. So we know that's a lie, which creates more jobs. Finally, in the coming months, 4,000 rooms will be built in massive luxury hotels in the eastern region of the country. Because all of this, many people believe that tourism only brings benefits to host countries. However, experts say this is not always the case. A good example is water. The large amount of water used by hotels in pools and gardens result in less drinking water. So, you know what I mean? I'm going to put water there. And also it says that current accommodation is inadequate because they're building new accommodation with bigger things. Additionally, with the lack of water, there is a neglect of crops and fields near tourist areas. Also, tourism causes local people to lose some of the festivals they have had for years. So, what are warnings? So, there is, I'm just going to put a subtract sign there, less festivals. Festivals obviously is fiestas there, fiestas. If we check the mark scheme, we should get 5 out of 5. So CDF, that's correct, 3 marks. And then lack of drinking water and fewer festivals. Also, you could have said abandoning crops. Ora pregunta 7. Ahora pregunta 7. ¿Cuál es paseando por Buenos Aires? So we have another one of these questions. We've not got the highlighters there. Which you have 5 of the tick boxes. So if you don't know in the exam, always guess. You have a 1 in 4 chance. So let's have a go. So people used to live here. So some sort of like book or film is the houses in there are in this neighborhood you can, and La Boca is close next to, in front of, far from the center of the city. So always these are in chronological order. So let's start reading the text. En La Boca, un barrio de Buenos Aires, vivan las personas mayores con poco dinero. So poco dinero is poor. What else is poor there? Pobre. Hoy el barrio está lleno de turistas. Hay galerías de arte, restaurantes y lugares para bailar la milonga, que es típica de esta ciudad. So, es un estilo de música. So, that is typical music. So, that's just music. And it says para bailar, so to dance. That's why it's A. So, the houses in La Boca, they are, so if we keep reading, that. So, las calles tienen casas antiguas de colores. So, the streets have houses that are old. So, is there anyone there? No. Just keep reading. Y son diferentes a las de otros barrios con edificios modernos y casas blancas. Aquí podrás visitar gratis el estadio del famoso equipo Boca Juniors, donde jugó Diego Maradona, uno de los más importantes futbolistas de todos los tiempos. So I believe that's answered the next 2. So we are told that they are old in comparison to others. So viejas is another word for old, and in this neighborhood you can enter. So it talks about the stadium there, doesn't it? So visita gratis el estadio de Formaso. So so you can enter without paying. Y finalmente la boca está del centro de la ciudad. So recuerda, Buenos Aires es grande y no podrás ir a la boca cambiando desde el centro de la ciudad. So it is not close, so it's lejos. Check the mark scheme, C, A, B, B, D, and you will get 5 out of 5. Ahora, pregunta 8. Ahora, pregunta 8, ¿cuál es ir de compras? So we have 4 names here and 5 things. So by process of elimination, you can pretty much guarantee that one of them is going to come up twice. So you have Vivi, Sol, Carol, y Mila, and you have 5 different statements. So buy cold, like clothes for the cold. And then B is the articles take 2 weeks to arrive. So it's very good price to see. So you can buy products from famous markets. And they have different sizes is tamaños. That's quite hard. You probably don't know that as common knowledge because it doesn't really come up, but it has in this one. So what we're going to do, as per usual with these questions, is read them one at once. If they come up, then we write it down. If they don't, then we don't. So let's start with Vivi. So, don't live in this country. No need to worry. All of our products are excellent, handmade, and we guarantee you'll receive them within 2 weeks. So instantly that answers our question, that they could arrive in 2 weeks. Sol, looking for something different to bring as a gift. Of course, special things aren't easy to find. Here we offer designer handbags and something unique. So that was Sol. So Sol is going to be famous products, which is also designer, sorry. So that's Sol. Then we also have Carol. So all of our pants come in all sizes, so I'm just going to write that down already because we already know. And many different styles, because we know that usually when you buy gifts, you don't always find exactly what you're looking for. La última chico es Mila, who should be A and C, but let's just check. Tired of buying expensive gifts? With our offer, you can buy winter coats. So that's answer A. You can buy winter coats that cost less than similar ones. No matter where you live, buy them online and you'll receive them very quickly. Must be C. Check the answers. Mila, Vivi, Mila, Sol y Carol. Cinco de cinco. Al próximo pregunta es pregunta noche. Ahora pregunta noche. ¿Cuál es el desempleo juvenil en España? So young disemployment in Spain. So as you can see in the top right corner in a yellow box, this is a grade 9 question. This separates grade 8, 9 students and also grade 7 if you want to count that. If you can pick up more than 2 marks here, be happy with yourself, as it is very hard to pick up marks on this question. However, you can still get a 9 without doing well on this question, but doing that means that you are expected to get pretty much full marks on the rest of the paper, as 9s tend to be about 92. So what we're going to do is, if you watched the last 2018 walkthrough, that we're going to go through what each of the questions translate to, what the text on the left actually means in English, and then we are going to look at the mark scheme and see how you could get 5 out of 5 according to the mark scheme. So, let's start with the question. So A, ¿qué se dice del desempleo en los países europeos comparado con España? So what is being said about unemployment in European countries compared to Spain? ¿Qué problema tienen los jóvenes españoles a la hora de buscar trabajo? So what problems do young Spaniards face when looking for work? ¿Qué problema específico tuvo Emilia cuando buscaba trabajo en España? So what specific problem did Emilia have when looking for work? ¿Qué hizo Emilia para mejorar su situación? So what did Emilia do to improve her situation? ¿Qué va a hacer Emilia ahora? It's not come up, but it's there. What is Emilia going to do now? So in the text on the left is there. I am not going to read it out loud as there is no point wasting both mine and yours time. However, I would recommend that if you need it, you take note of the translation, as it's going to help you understand how to do it. If you want to try, then try and do the question now before we move on. But on the next slide, I'll go through how to get 5 out of 5. Okay, and as said on the previous slide, that I'm now going to go through how to answer. So I'm going to put up the mark scheme in a minute. I'll put the screenshot of the last slide and the questions on the top just so you can see them again if you need it in English for you to try and help you understand this paper more. So let's start with A and B. So A is what is being said about unemployment in European companies. So hay menos hay la mitad de desempleados. There are less than half as many unemployed. So I imagine that the keyword there is la mitad. So sorry, so that is less than half. So la mitad is half. Menos de la. No quieren el nuevo tipo de empleo. They don't want the new type of employment. So that's the problem that young people are facing. Los trabajos eran demasiados fáciles para ella. So jobs were too easy for Amelia. So that's a specific problem. What did Amelia do to improve her situation? Se fue a Berlin. So she went to Berlin. If you were going to get any marks on these, I'd imagine you get around 9D and 9E, because they're basically saying the same thing. And E, what is Amelia going to do now? She's going to stay in Berlin. That's how you get 5 out of 5 on this question. I do apologise that it's so tricky, but there's nothing I can do about it. They always have these questions every single year. And like I said, if you can pick up more than 2 marks, or even just 2 marks, then that's a good thing, as it helps you later on in the paper. Up until this point, you probably, if you're aiming for a 9, will have got, well, what's this, 5 marks, and the translation 7, so 43, so 38. You probably have got around 36 or 37 out of 38 marks until you got to this question, and hoping to do well on the translation. I'm waffling now, so let's go to la última pregunta, pregunta 10, which is the translation from Spanish to English. Ahora tenemos la última pregunta, pregunta 10, which is always a translation from Spanish into English. The exam board recommend, so Edexcel would say that you should spend 15 minutes on this question. Whether you spend 15 minutes or not is not down to me. Personally, I don't think that you need 15 minutes on this. Well, normally you don't, but sometimes you do, so spend your time wisely is what I'll say. So we're going to go through like I did in the 2018 paper walkthrough, how I did it there. So go through it sentence by sentence. Just before I finish, if you managed to stay this far, please comment if you don't understand anything. Like the video, and please subscribe so that we can help more students. Share this to everyone you know, so we can help everyone out. Right, let's continue and actually finish the paper. So, I've got sentences lined up in English of what's from the mark scheme, and to get 7 out of 7, you pretty much need to get it exactly correct. So, I study Spanish, and I decided that it was necessary to speak this language for this class. So, I study Spanish, estudio español, y decidí que necesitaba, so I needed to speak, so I used to need to speak, so este idioma, this language, fuera de clase. So fuera is probably a word you didn't know there. So fuera is outside the classroom. The classroom is de clase. They could have said aula, which is a classroom as well. The next question, the proxima question. Tuve suerte. So I don't know if you can tell the colour difference there, but there is a colour difference. That I'm lucky. So tuve suerte. So tengo suerte is I'm lucky. So tuve is the past tense of this. So I was lucky. Make sure you do that because you can mark down for that. As I met Susana. So conocí. So conocer is to meet. Una chica mexicana. So she was Mexican. Who was interested in doing intercambio is exchange. That might have been a tricky one for some people. So intercambio is exchange. Español, Inglés. So Spanish-English exchange. Sorry, that's weird. And the next question, the next sentence even. So go down, let's do red now. So Nos reunimos, so we meet or we met often. Doesn't matter which tense you do it in there according to the mark scheme. So we meet often. A menudo is often there. And I realise that we speak better every time. So me doy cuenta de cada hablamos mejor. So me doy is probably the word that you didn't get there. That's quite hard. So I realised. So that's quite, yeah, that's a tricky one. And we speak better every time. So it's a bit tricky there. Word order. Mejor, it might have tripped you up. That just means to be better. But you might have said something else. If you didn't know what doy was, it might have thrown you off. And there's nothing really, unlike the last translation, where you could find in this text. And finally, the last sentence, so pronto is soon. So soon we will have our exams, and I hope that we get good grades. Be careful with notas, because there's a word that's norma, which is rules, and I always get that one confused. It's just one that there's always a couple of words you don't get confused. That's the end of this video. Thank you very much for listening to me today. This was the Pearson Edexcel June 2019 Edexcel Spanish Higher Tier Reading Paper. I don't know how many more papers I'll probably do today. I might do one more reading. I might do the 2020 reading, as I'm not going to have much time left because these videos take a lot longer than I thought they would take. And I'm also going to try and do the Spanish hires for the 2018, 2019 and 2020 if I can get it working. So stay tuned for videos later today. I'll probably be releasing every couple of hour and a half or so. Thank you very much for listening again, and please subscribe, share, comment or like. If you have any questions, just let me know. Adios chicos.